The end of that day, you know what my son said? He's like, "Daddy, this was the best day of my life." And it's the small things like that.
Are you ready to become the dad you were meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect actions are better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, the founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they are called to be. We need epic dads now more than ever. And it is your responsibility and obligation to become the best father you can be and show your kids what is possible. Listen in for weekly tips, strategies, and actions you can take to go from average dad to epic dad. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. Mike, what's up, my man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, dude. Good, man. Glad to have you on. Glad we connected. Want to bring you on and just talk about dad stuff, man.
Yeah,
Dad stuff, fitness stuff. So, give the folks listening just a little insight into kind of who you are, what you're working on.
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you first bringing me on, and I've been in the industry a good while, even though I'm only 35. But it seems like in the last, as any dad would probably tell you, that when you have young kids, it feels like you age pretty quickly. But I went from being a gym owner. I was a college athlete, and then I decided to open a gym after I had a, not to make people know this story, but I was in a tragic bike accident. So I was a professional triathlete after I was out of college and qualified for Kona. And
Oh, no shit. Okay.
On a training run, I got hit by a truck on my road bike, and it
Jesus.
basically ended my career. Right now, I'm on my ninth surgery on my knee. So was pretty banged up, and I couldn't finish my college education. So I had one semester short of an engineering degree, and I was home laid up on the couch, depressed. And I was like, you know what? I've got a couple friends that are neighbors. I offered to train them on the side just for something to do to get out of the house. And I ended up getting one girl into the CrossFit games. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. So I took that girl, and I had a couple friends, opened a gym, got a little bit of equipment, and got $500 from my mom and grew it from 2 people to about 380 people. And had a high membership for about 12 years until COVID came. And at that time, 2 young kids. And I kind of made that shift, as the most men kind of realize in life, where the priorities kind of come, where kids need to become the focus. And I noticed myself drifting too much away from that as they were developing. So I pivoted into the online space, closed my gym down, too much stress, even developed some autoimmune issues from the stress and inflammation in my body. And now I'm kind of in that place of peace and happiness where I coach a lot of dads. And we kind of have 5 basic pillars that even you believe in, with family, fitness, faith, food, and finances. And I think in today's world, the epitome of what people think is just, it's not just giving somebody a workout plan and giving them a meal plan and say, go. I work to change the body. So I'm actually licensed in functional medicine now. And I've learned that just because of my own issues. So I now know how to read, analyze, interpret lots of blood work, hormones. And that's why people come to me, because I've come to find that it's not just that stuff. I mean, you can't just send somebody a workout and say, do it and expect results. How's your stress? How's your sleep? How's your hormones? And if these things aren't optimized, your body's never going to progress. So I really dived into that aspect of things. And that's kind of what draws people into me, is I'm not just more of a trainer. I more bring the lifestyle of the man together to make them, valuable for themselves and their families, because that's ultimately what will create an everlasting relationship with health.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's so you started out just training guys and gals in your garage gym, is that right? And then you opened up
Yeah.
yeah. Was this was it a CrossFit gym that you opened up?
So it was more, I don't want to say it was a CrossFit gym. I actually took a CrossFit gym out because I was started in a garage, and then I moved into a shopping center. The shopping center was pretty crazy. It was deadbeat. It was one of those where like spirit Halloweens were in there because nobody else would come in there. And I called the landlord. I was like, hey, I have $500 that my mom gave me. Can you just give me 30 days? And I've got a few friends, and I had a friend that gave me some equipment. And he's like, sure, I'll give you 30 days, man. But after that, and so I proved wrong. In 30 days, I ended up having 100 clients. and a CrossFit gym came in, and I actually ran them out of business because I ended up taking like 5 units because I kept having to knock out walls. So they kept growing to a point where he actually ended up building me my own custom suite, and they redid the whole center, put a Dick's Sporting Goods in there. And I was right behind, attached to Dick's Sporting Goods on the backside of it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was a neat experience for me, at a young age in my 20s, kind of doing all this myself, the construction, having to deal with the management, watching my new gym be built. And it was like just a overwhelming experience. I learned a lot of things, not just in becoming a gym owner, but also in like building management
Yeah.
and
Business
finding
owner.
additional things.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of things.
Yeah. When did kids come along at that point? When you kind of had a gym?
It was, I had my first in 2019. So, that was, I guess that'd be because I opened my gym in 2014. So it'd have been 5 years into it.
Okay.
And that it was a rough awakening, man. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine, like, it's, when you've got two babies in the house and business to own, but when it's a business that's not operated out of your own home, it's difficult, and it's a lot of stress. And that's what then kind of I started watching my own health decline very quickly from that point. So I started noticing, like, even people like, man, this guy's a fit dude. Like I could run circles around people, which we did, variations of, we called them boot camps, but it was more of, we had like basic entry level boot camps, and we had like more advanced that was more like CrossFit type stuff. But I was never a fan of CrossFit. So I more so structured my workouts around mainly strength lifts with some conditioning finishers,
Mm.
and people loved it. And then I also brought in some athletes, trained them in there too. We did PT, we had spin, we had yoga, we had a lot of different stuff in there. And after so many years, I kind of noticed that it was a lot of work and a lot of stress. And it started really, people even noticed, like, I mean, in just the last 5 years, I put on probably about 25 pounds of muscle because I got just so skinny, and I got really sick, and I just was just not, just inflamed, stressed out, and realized that it just wasn't for me anymore because of the stress that it brought on. And I mean, you talk to a lot of gym owners and they'll tell you the same thing. That's not an easy thing.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, like the majority of the guys that listen to this show, I would, assume is that like they want to go build things, right? And want to go be successful. And we all have that drive, I think, as men,
Hmm.
to do that. Right. But,
Yeah.
when we become fathers, like we really need to be cognizant about what we're building. Right. And like
Hmm.
have the end in mind, and not that like you're not going to have to go through a grind period, because you absolutely will. That's
Yeah.
necessary and required, to
Yeah.
be successful. But like, you need to be more strategic about it, right? You're not in your mid 20s with no kids and unlimited hours, and you just grind your face off until 2 a.m. every night. Like that's going to take a toll on how you show up for your family, and how you show
Yep.
up for your kids, right? And so, I mean, good for you on noticing that and making a change. Because I think we talk to a lot of dads that are just like stuck in that mode, right? Of like I'm trying to do everything, and
Yep.
it's taking a toll on them.
And a lot of times then they're silent about it, right? And
Yeah,
that's where they then become victims of their own minds, where they then start saying, "Oh, I don't have time," or I can't fit it in," or work's too stressful. And it's really just because of where they're placing the priorities in their life. And that's just is kind of like the big reality of what I try to open up for guys. That, I mean, nobody said being a dad's easy. It's not an easy job, but what you have to come to realize is you first have to step out of your own mind. And that's just is what I had to do, is kind of get out of that mindset of, this life is about me and what I want to build. It has to be about what you just said, how you show up for your family, because you're honestly the ghost of your kid's future. And whether you think so or not, they are watching everything you do. And it kind of is what my son, I mean, my gym got so bad that every time I go in there, I mean, I couldn't walk away without problems, stress, people blowing me up. And I ended up having to build my own gym in my garage. and,
yeah,
and I would work out there before I would go into my own gym that
hmm
had hundreds of $1,000s equipment in there. And that's what the reality was. And then at home now, I see, I mean, my kids are still only 4 and 5, and they watch me every morning. Like, Noah wakes up at 5 a.m. just to come downstairs to watch me, or he'll work out with me. And that's what I want to tell dads, is that you might not think that they notice that you're eating that ice cream, or that you're making that excuse for not taking care of yourselves, but they do.
hmm
And they follow in those footsteps. And that kind of is where I've led my coaching into helping guys realize that it doesn't take a massive shift in your life. It takes a small step, and those small steps will stack wins. And kind of like what we talked about with our own mentors in life, like discipline isn't something you just get. It's something you earn from doing small things daily, right? That maybe it's for you is just not hitting snooze.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win. You
Mm-hmm.
start stacking that win day after day. And guess what? After a month of you not hitting snooze, you build what? Confidence. And then
Yeah.
confidence will then lead to what? Discipline. So after a lot of time of building these small habits, you can then become a better person just by doing something easy like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we had a whole conversation today inside of our fit community about that right there. About one, the snooze button, and I am anybody that follows me and knows me knows I'm a huge proponent of the snooze button. It is like the biggest thing that you can do to build that discipline, muscle and confidence. But we talked specifically about that, but we also talked about what we call the LBV, the little bitch voice, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
you know, um, you're not unique in that, right? Like if you're trying to better yourself, there's always going to be, these, you can call it angel and demon, you can call it positive energy, negative energy, whatever you want
Mhm.
to call it, right? But like there's gonna be this voice that constantly chirping in your head, telling you that you don't need to do this, that just take the easy route. Nobody's watching, nobody's gonna know, right? But like you talked about, is that the snooze button is huge. And so that's one of our daily non-negotiable habits inside of our program is no snooze button ever. And it is because for a couple of reasons. One is you said it the night before, so you're making a promise to yourself, right? And if
Mhm.
you break that promise to yourself first thing in the morning, like how the freak do you think the rest of your day is going to go, right?
Yeah.
Because the first thing
Yep.
you did was break a promise to yourself, and so we obviously don't want to do that. We want to be a man of a man of our word, right, and keep our promises. And then when that happens, like you just said, right, you start to build that confidence over time, that you are the type of person that's going to do what you say you're going to do, right? And
Mhm.
so that's a huge one. And then point number two is, again, going back to that little bitch voice inside your head. It gives you the opportunity every single morning to fight that voice in your head and win, right? And like
Yeah.
that's a win for the day.
Yep.
And then three is, especially for the married guys, is the snooze button. Like you're not the only one that it affects, right? If that alarm goes off and you hit snooze, like you may think it is, right? But like you've got your wife sleeping next to you, and you told her, "Hey, I'm going to get up and go to the gym tomorrow morning," right? And that alarm goes off. She hears it, right? And she hears you hit snooze and go back to bed too. And like, what do you
Yep.
think's running through her mind?
Yep.
Right? It's like, all
Exactly.
right, well, I can't even trust him to get out of bed when he says he's going to get out of bed. Like, how can I
Yeah.
trust him with the bigger things, like to lead our family? Right. So
Yeah.
it's huge. Like that. Yeah, man. I'm a huge believer in you should never ever hit the snooze button.
Yep. The greatest thing, and actually we were both talking about, Bezos being a great mentor of ours. And one of the greatest things that I took from him was a great saying. It's how you do anything is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I've kind of taken my whole life with me. It's not just about one thing in your life. It's how you do everything, man, because how you show up for your kids, how well you keep your house, how organized is your car? Is it messy? What about your room? How do you smell good? Do you take care? Do you groom? Like all these things will stack that confidence muscle in your body. And that's the biggest thing I think leaking in the men's society right now. I mean, we live in a world where literally by 2030, over 2/3 of our country, not just overweight, but obese,
Mm-hmm.
obese. And
Yeah.
that's a problem. And men in general, they like to think and they have that front, hey, I'm okay, I got this. This is guide mode, right? But inside, they know what they're doing wrong, and they know that they got to start somewhere, and that's where you have the conversations. I'm sure you do, and it starts off with them saying, "Oh, I know what to do. I just got to get to it." Well, if you knew what you know you got to do, you would have done it by now, because there's a large chance that if you knew what you needed to do, you would have had that success already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's telling me that you might not know as much as you think you do. And sometimes you have to be humbled down, which is why, you know, God bless everything that's happened in my life. I actually have like 4 pastors in my program now, but I have a lot of faith developed in my life. And what really I think changed me as a man is being broken and humbled down. And a lot of guys get that pedestal. I mean, a 20-year-old gym owner, right? Has 400 people in his gym. He's rocking it. And, whether I wasn't making money, but no gym owner really does. But I mean, I had a big gym at a young age. So I thought I was king of the hill. And now I get it all stripped from me. And I got humbled very quickly. And I think that's what our world really needs, is that grace and humbleness, because when guys can get broken down, you kind of get through the layers of them, and you kind of pick back that, you know what, I probably am that not that type of guy, or I probably should do this to actually show that I am gonna be there and support my family, or be there and actually show up and keep a promise to my kid, because they remember that stuff. I mean, you ask them to take them to the toy store and you don't take them, they will remember that. I mean, my kid will remind me every day until I take him. But it's the small things that I tell guys, because even just on Sunday, I had a conversation with somebody else today earlier about my son. I had a plan to take him to this Halloween type event thing out at a park, and he's like, "Daddy, I don't want to do that today. I'd rather just kind of stay home, and we just like color and paint." And I was like, "Well, buddy, are you sure? Like, I planned this, and we do pumpkins, whatever." He's like, "No, I just want to stay home. I'm tired." I'm like, "Okay." And the old me would have just let them go color, and do their thing, fine, and I'd just go maybe work or go out in the gym, whatever. And I decided to say, you know what, today I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to show up. And I went right in there, man. And I colored with them. We painted, we had projects. We made the best little designs. At the end of that day, you know what my son said? He's like, "Daddy, this was the best day of my life." And it's the small things like that, because he'd rather spend the time. And a lot of times dads get it wrong, where they want to provide. Yes, we got to provide. I mean, that's a given, but a lot of times they just want us. And as a dad, that brings out the best in me, because that him saying that, my rest of my week, I mean, you couldn't touch me, because I was on fire. I mean, I felt so good
Mhm.
about myself.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And what a lot of guys and dads especially don't understand is, they have these problems, these issues. I mean, you hear the same stuff I do, right? It's like, I just don't have enough time. Yeah, is the biggest thing, right? I just can't find time to do all that
Mhm.
stuff. Um, but what they fail to understand is, like, the more that you pour into yourself, the more it's going to open up the opportunity for you to be more intentional with your time, right? It,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have more time, right? Like for you hanging out with your kid, right? Like, that's that time block is there, right? And you could have very easily just been like, all right, cool, go color, right? But
Mhm.
because you've done that work around discipline and wanting to show it more intentionally, like, you made the decision that, hey, I'm going to go spend this time intentionally with my kid,
Mhm.
and so, and going back to the our kids discussion, it's like, yeah, they don't need much, man. They really don't. When at the end of the day, especially when they're little, like, I don't, from my experience, again, my kid, my oldest is 8, so I don't know, like, what teenage years are gonna look like. But, for my kids, like, all they want is my time, right? It doesn't matter what
Yep.
we're doing. They want me to put my phone away, not answer emails or be on Instagram, and just be present with them, right? And
Yep.
it honestly doesn't take that much time, like 20, 30 minutes, and they're bored with dad, They're like, "I'm gonna
Yeah.
go do something else."
Yeah.
And so, like, at the end of the day, like, you do have time. Everybody has time. It's just, how do you prioritize that time? And then how are you very intentional with the time that you have?
Yeah. Yep. Like the saying goes, man, everybody wants time when they don't have it, but when you have it, everybody then wastes it away. So it's really one of those lessons that you learn, that kind of how you spend it, and it's one thing that a lot of guys like. It's amazing, the dads you talk to, and they can rip off the roster of the Yankees to you in a matter of 2 minutes. But then you ask them, what they ate the last 3 days, and they can't remember half of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. It's all the sports discussions and stuff. My 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 priorities have most definitely shifted since I've become a dad. And not just because since I become a dad, but really since I made the decision to, like, be more intentional about being a dad. Because
Hmm.
I used to, I'm from Atlanta. I'm a big Braves fan. I
Yeah.
used to, watch all the games and know all the stats and, watch everything, man. Like, dude, I couldn't tell you freaking 3 players on the Braves now. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't like them. I love baseball, right?
Yeah.
But, like, when I look at the things in my life and I stack them on what's priority, like the
Yeah.
Atlanta Braves roster and my family, like, they're down here, right? And my
Yeah.
family's up here.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a Braves game on TV. I don't know who plays on the team at all, and I still love baseball, man. And when
Wow.
my life is in a different spot and my kids are off to college, right? Or they don't want anything to do with that. Like, sure, I'll go to several Braves games, and
Yeah.
keep track of them. But right now,
Yeah.
it's just not important, man.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And I'm sure yours are probably into sports too. So it's
Yeah,
like for me, like, I would rather go watch my son play baseball than to watch a team that guys making millions of dollars to hit a ball and complain about it.
yeah, yeah. Hey guys, interrupting the show for 1 minute to ask you a question. If the future you 40 years from now looked at you right now, looked at the way you're showing up, looked at the energy you're bringing to your family, looked at the way you are leading, looked at your physical shape, looked at the habits, routines, and disciplines you have, looked at your vices, would he be proud? Or would he be shaking you violently, trying to get you to wake up and take control of your life? If you feel stuck in a rut, can't get motivated, I understand. I've been there. That is why I created the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the Fit program is to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. All right, back to the show. Well, talk to me a little bit about your kind of approach with guys. We chatted for just a second before we hopped on about your 5F. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So it's something I developed, after about 2 years in the space. I wanted a program that was going to separate me from other coaches. Obviously, we know, both you and I, that the online space for health coaching is exploding and very saturated. So how you stand out is going to be very important. And I looked at my own passion in my own life, right? And you're a product of what you sell. And I basically saw my body go through a ringer. I mean, I saw kind of what happens to most females because I was overtraining and undereating, and it did the same kind of damage to me as what it would do to a female, except with females, you're talking hormones get so altered that, I mean, let's look at the population of who's on semaglutide and Ozempic now, all these GLP-1s and all this stuff that's going on with their hormones. And it becomes problematic that I get messages daily about, Mike, I'm stuck at this amount of calories and I can't lose weight. And I'm only eating one meal a day and I'm on semaglutide. And I can relate because even guys get run into the issue. Now, more so guys get in flip side where they get stuck in insulin resistance problems where they have high blood sugar and it's because they're pre-diabetic or they've rocked dad bods, which I think, well, hey, I'm not fat. I'm just skinny. What? Guess what? You still are going to have insulin issues because of the crap you're putting in your body. And I saw this because of the years of what it did to me and the inflammation. Like, Drew, I'll tell you now, man, like I ate perfectly clean. I just didn't eat enough.
Hmm.
It's just, I saw it wreck my body from the inside out. I developed so much gut stuff. Couple bodybuilders I even can relate to, like Alan Kress was one of the big guys that I actually even met. And he had severe gut issues when he first went through this too. And I just was like, man, this is it's not right. I was hospital to hospital. People, doctors was like, oh, you're just constipated. And it turns out I had a form of Crohn's that developed from an autoimmunity from the amount of stress I was placing on my body with overtraining, undereating. And then I saw it tank my testosterone to 108. So I was literally on death's doorknob. And talk about then seeing an example. I was not one because that's where that year was my wake up call because I'd be sitting on the couch and I'd watch my kids play and I'm like, I can't get up. Here I'm this fit dude that's eating salads and doing all the right things and owns a gym and I can't even get up to go play with my kids. Something is wrong. And so when I created my online coaching, I wanted to center this around more in functional medicine because anyone can you can Google a workout these days and do it and get
Yeah,
results.
we
Now,
give workout plans away for free on our website, right? It's like that's
exactly.
not what it is, bro.
For you, for someone to say, "Oh, well, I'm a great coach." I mean, I get it. You can have now if I'm a bodybuilder, if I'm some literally a professional CrossFit athlete, then yes, maybe we need to get in some conjugate methods, some drop sets, some rest pot. What you can get more in depth. But the average guy, it's going to be fine with just moving their body, progressively overloading, working some heavier weight. And so I then realized this, and it's because I used to be a programming jizz. I mean, when you write for T Nation and Inside Fit, all these, magazines, you get in there because you're good at programming. So that was my thing. But then I switched to, that's not the problem. The problem is what the inside of the body. And before you can get results on the outside, the inside has to be healthy. So I started getting a lot of my licenses in functional medicine. So I started to read and analyze hormone tests, Dutch tests, all the stuff for guys and women. And I then developed my program along that path of how I first will take the body and I work inflammation and stress. Because if you don't do that, Drew, you know more than I do, you're just pouring gasoline on fire. I mean, you literally are. If you're just trying to beat a dead horse with more workouts and dieting, which is what the average trainer does these days. I mean, let's be real. When we both had training jobs back at the gym, when we were 16, 17 years old, you just make a workout quick, beat them to death, walk them out the gym and have them say, bye, see you next week. And, my goal and approach now came to, let's fix the problem that I was even doing as owning a gym, because I ran 30-day challenges. And trust me, I beat the crap out of women, and I would give them these 1,000-calorie diet plans. I'd work them out every day. They would drop 20 pounds in a month. And then I'd see them 6 months later, broken, regain the weight plus some, running from me and giant and hiding behind aisles because they look so ashamed of themselves. And so I wanted to fix the problem. So that's why now I do the body first. And then once the body is fixed, you can start pulling the levers, and then you can start kind of pushing it how you want to. And it becomes unique because then the process works so much better, because you're not back flipping with trying to get people to get it, because everybody wants results instantly. We're in America. So I now bring that in with obviously faith. With now, I'm a big believer. Obviously, God's changed my life. And I think that if you're not really serving him first, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of failure, because our jobs as men are to serve. I mean, that is who we are. And when you have that at your center, it's going to look out for you, and it's going to make sure that your mind is right every day. And so I tell my guys, the first thing to start your day is a gratitude message and time with God. And I do that first. And then obviously fitness, making sure you're moving every day. Family, I make sure that I bring all parts of the family together, remind men, date nights, time with kids, your no phone zones. All these things are important, because you get lost as a dad. And it happened to me. So I bring that into family. Finances are another big thing. I mean, that's the number one stress for most men in our world, is financial concerns. So I work, partly with some guys that do insurance, help people retire early, work in that side of things. And then the last part with going into the food part is just obviously with functional medicine. I use food to treat the body. So I don't use food to say, here's your macros, eat this, do that. I use food as, let's look at your body, let's look at your lifestyle, let's look at your stress, and let's put all things together, and then let me heal the body, change the body with food.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how my approach works.
Okay.
And just to give you a little bit of a rundown.
Yeah, man. Talk to me more about kind of the body side of the house, right? Like you talk about, fixing the body first. Like what does that look like? What are some of the things that you see most often with guys that you're working with, that might be some markers and indications that, like, hey, we need to get some things right. And then, like, what are those tweaks that you make?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely love that one. For most men, I often see hidden gut issues, gut dysbiosis, inflammation within the gut. That's probably number one. And what I notice what that does, because it doesn't come out as gut. So a lot of guys, oh, my gut's good, I can eat, pizza and beef, I'm fine, but it's oftentimes hidden, and I'll find it either in GI scopes or Geneva stools tests, or just with symptoms. I mean, like, for example, a lot of people don't know that your gut houses 61% of your immune system. It also comprises of 18 to 21% of thyroid conversion. So your gut has largely almost about 90% of your body's metabolic rate, and also your immunity. So if there's any sort of break in that chain within your gut, you're not getting anywhere. And so I often see things like food sensitivities. Mike, I can't eat this, or acid reflux, where I feel like I eat something and I feel like this way, or I get massive migraines and I don't know what to do about it. My doctor's giving me pills, they don't work, or I've tried this, or Mike, I don't know. Oftentimes I can't sleep at night, and they don't no idea it's related to their gut because of what? Blood sugar. And where does blood sugar start? Within the gut, the GI tract, of what you're eating and what's actually spiking it, and how and why and how often. So a big thing of how I first diagnose this is first testing and symptoms, right? So testing's great, but symptoms are even better. And then after that, I usually go into a low inflammation state food list. So I usually try to make sure that they're eating low inflammatory foods, and I supplement them, like you even own a supplement company, like the Fab Five for guys, most likely are going to be what? Your creatine, magnesium, fish oil, vitamin D, and your whey protein or your grass fed whey. So I usually kind of get them on these 5 things and say, these are your staples, but when we're talking medicine, every case is different. So every guy then will get put on something for whether I'm trying to treat their gut, right? So if there's something with, like I said, most people are coming into me with a lot of insulin issues. Like they eat food and they're spiking up over 130, which isn't a bad thing. I get a lot of people to say, Mike, my blood sugar spikes to 140, 150 after I eat a meal. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What I look for is the 2-hour perennial rating. So what your body does with blood sugar 2 hours after you eat. And that's kind of my secret sauce into figuring out what your body's doing with food that you're eating. If that stays elevated, it's not using your food too well. And you're obviously the role of insulin is shuttle blood in and out of the cell. So be used for energy. So if it's staying high, it's not using that for energy, and it's then be sitting it back and storing it. And that's what then becomes a problem because high insulin all the time is going to run havoc on your body. And it's going to come with different ways of different things, whether it is migraines, fatigue, gut issues. And so what I will then do, so say I've got somebody running high blood sugars and insulin, and I can start basic, right? Household items. You got cinnamon, you got ginger, you got marshmallow bark, you got licorice fruit, some of these natural things that can help bring blood sugars down, or you can go more conventional like berberine, chromium. That this can be a little bit higher. And then there's got some more different products that I could find that can combine different things that have multiple items in one. But then you got, like I've said, you got doctors out there that would be quick to just put you on semaglutide. And then what's that do? Okay, it brings your blood sugar down, but then also it makes you what? Irritable, not hungry, moody. And then nobody tells you how to get off of it. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's been proven to actually be a great product when used correctly and under professional supervision. But that usually semaglutide and Ozempic, those things are like year and a half out from whenever I start with a client and I still can't get them down.
Yeah.
That's how far out because I try every method first because it could even, I mean, you're talking hormone issues too. I mean, if their hormones are off, insulin's going to be high, and if androgens are high, so if someone comes in and they're on TRT, their insulin could be high. So you got to have a lot of different issues, but I always will start with the gut first usually. And that's the biggest thing I
Yeah.
see problematic. And then I'll start adding in just conventional, like low inflammatory foods first and supplementing them right.
Yeah.
And a lot of things too with it comes is your training, right? Because we nobody really tells you this, but when you train, you're going to have a different response on blood sugar and insulin. So if you're going to stress somebody out with some hit workouts and start crushing them and pushing them to failure with supersets and compound sets and that lifting 3 rep maxes, they're not controlling their stress. So like you probably will see a lot of business owners, CEOs, guys that are busy, stressed out, have multiple kids, shoving them into a gym and saying, here, let's work you out to death and have you do heavy lifting, put you on a diet. Their insulin is not going down by any means. It's going to keep going up and up and up. Their weight's not going to change. They might get a quick result for a few weeks before it then backfires on them. But that's why I kind of pull the stress first. And so
Yeah.
I say walking, easy, straight setting, not pushing sets to failure, draw out inflammation. Then your body has a much larger chance to convert and change.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes
Talk
sense.
to me about the foods, right? So trying to this is very interesting to me because it's an area I studied a little bit, but don't know too much about is the gut. And so when you see somebody in that maybe had some high stress levels, high insulin levels, where do you start with from a food basis and recommendations to say, hey, let's kind of start here to see if we can kind of set a baseline around the gut?
Yeah, the gut's a very important part where a lot of doctors are just going to say, what? Get on a probiotic, you're good to go.
Mm.
And that's the worst thing to do because your gut needs good and bad bacteria. It needs both versions, right? But you first have to start when I have a process called my 5R system. And basically, what it's going to start with is reducing environmental toxins. It's something that sounds silly, but the amount of people that I've changed their life from just drawing out things like whether it's pesticides in their food, maybe it's house candles, right? Or maybe it's the Febreze that they're spraying all throughout their house, or this the stuff and all this everyday product care that women use on their faces. A lot of the environmental things first, you've got to cut out. Secondly, is then I'm going to remove bad bacteria. So it's reduce, remove. Those are the first two steps. When I remove, I kill. So killing is a great thing, but oftentimes people would think that killing is just, yeah, give you one little bit of a bacterial killer because actually people don't really know that, things like oregano, garlic, those are natural bacterial killers and they'll help feed off bad bacteria, which is good in small parts. But whenever you're killing, and I'm an aggressive killer because I'm one that I like to get in there and get out because the more you kind of play in the gut, the more problems that can happen. So I'm going to kill pretty hard for that first month. And while I'm doing that, I'm supporting one of the biggest problems, which is what most people do begin to have when they've got gut issues is leaky gut. So you've probably heard of that term. And it's kind of where the gut lining, like your gut lining is kind of like guitar strings, right? And so what happens in leaky gut is that guitar lining kind of gets all bent up and kind of wrinkly. And so then the bad bugs can get right into that lining, right? So what I do in that phase is I'm going to support the lining so we can get it back into a smooth shield. So that way the bad stuff can stop coming back in. So things like aloe vera juice are very great for that. Again, licorice root, marshmallow bark, peppermint's also great for that. Glutamine is also very good. There's a lot of great natural things that can come with that can be a lot of the mushrooms or like cordyceps can be very great for gut health. So, I'll add these things in slowly for them. Even ginger, turmeric, obviously are great things. And they can get more advanced as you go, but I start with the basics. So those are the basics. And then once I reduce and remove, then it's time to repopulate. So that's where then the probiotics can come into place. And it's not just where you can go to the store and just grab one that looks good or is the most expensive, what most people do these days.
Mm-hmm.
You got to find the strain that fixes your problem. And there's a strain for each type of problem. I mean, I've healed people's allergies because there's a strain that can even help for people with allergies or just literally from things with nasal drip or congestion, or if your eyes get swelly, all these are signs of bad bacteria within the gut. And so when you're going into the remove phase, it's about trying to then kind of getting that probiotic that fits your lifestyle for that strain, whether women, a lot of times it's UTIs or infections. And then men, it's a lot of times gut dysbiosis or inflammation. And so getting them on a probiotic. And then after that, we just bind it up. I call it the repair phase. So you got everything all nice and strong. So it's supported, good, and nothing can get back in and damage it. And then that kind of completes the 5R system, which that takes time. I mean, you're talking, this is going to be about a 6 month. I mean, for me, it took about 9 to 12 months
Mm-hmm.
to put my Crohn's into remission, which people don't realize. Gut issues are not a short-term fix. It's time, but this is over the course of probably a 6 to 7 month time frame.
Okay. What about from a food perspective? Because there's gonna be a lot of guys that hear that and they're like, "Hey, that sounds great. That sounds very complicated."
Yeah.
Right? How do we simplify things for dads that are like, "Hey, man, this sounds good, but like, I got 4 kids. I'm running a softball practice. I got a 9 to 5 job that I'm commuting to, and like, I don't have time for all
Mhm.
that stuff, man." Like, what are a couple things from food perspective you can say to put them on the right track? Like, what should they be eating?
Yeah. Um, there's two options here. So obviously I'm a busy dad and I've got a lot of dads that just run on the go.
Mm,
There's through Practitioner Depot, which is a place that I use that's for practitioners, obviously, that creates medical based foods that can put all these things into an actual supplement. And then whether it's powder form, I mean, it's not going to taste pretty with meats, but they can put everything in that. So that way they don't have to go find, oh, where's my bottle of licorice root? Where's
yeah.
my gin? It's everything in just one. I mean, that's America these days. So there's the medical food route, which for most guys is what I go with, and they tell them because they'll blend up their shake, and then sometimes I'll have them add different things, whether it's maybe like fennel seed, or maybe they add a little bit extra ginger to it. And then obviously they'll take that with them, they'll double make it and have that through their day, and so that way they don't got to worry about massive supplements that they have to take. But when it comes to food, actually, the best things that you can do are going to be probably along the lines of a low FODMAP type of a food list. So You're talking anything that's not processed, that's single ingredient. And I always say the vitamin A foods are best on the gut. So you're talking like your sweet potatoes, your squashes, your carrots. Those are always going to be the best fit for most men when it comes to healing gut and promoting good bacteria within the gut. Your leafy greens are obviously a huge win when it comes to gut health. So if you're not getting in any orange and any green in your body every day, then your gut will probably be a mess. And that's why I tell everybody those are two big staples that you've got to have in, whether your orange is literally turmeric and ginger, or it's your orange from your squashes and your sweet potatoes. But those are big key factors along with the low FODMAP. I like that one, probably the best when it comes to healing the gut.
Yeah. What about meats? What about meat sources?
Meat, bison is probably the most aggressive I get with meat when it comes to healing the gut. Why is because the biggest thing that we often see, it's not that meat's bad. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. I even have grass-fed beef daily now, which God bless that because I could never do that earlier. But what it often can do is spike triglycerides. And also it's a little bit when you're healing the gut, the biggest thing people don't realize, you got to have food that can go in and out quick. You can't have food that sits in the GI tract for days on end, which people don't even realize. Chicken takes about 48 to 54 hours for it to exit the body. And that's chicken. So the quickest sources are going to be your whitefish, salmon, and turkey, eggs, right? Those things, your avocado. And those are the foods, especially avocado. Probably, if I were to tell you anybody watching this podcast, the studies recently on avocado are mind blowing. I'm talking like our body has a lot of bad acids in them. And one of them is called oleanic acid, right? And this acid actually, as they've been doing studies on this, and it's so crazy because they had two studies and one of the groups just ate a burger, right? Just plain. And then the other group ate the burger with just a massive half avocado on top of it. And the group that ate with the avocado had less oleanic acid in their body about, I think it was 12 to 14 hours afterward. And it was a massive, significant difference, not just something slight. So if I were to tell guys anything, I say put avocado on everything. It's a massive inflammation cutter. Also, it's great for your gut. So when it comes to that, yeah, I would say, for most people, meats are going to spike triglycerides. Triglycerides, what? Create inflammation. That's going to what? Create bad cellular health, which will then lead to high insulin, which will then create more gut problems and stress and inflammation down there. So we try to eliminate it only for about, I would say 4 to 6 weeks. But then whenever we do add it back, picking the right meat sources. So a lot of people would just think that you can go to your local butcher and get meat and you're good to go or kill it yourself. But I say you go more grass fed, the more fattier the meat cut is because more the damage and more the kind of the bad gook gets in the fat of the animal that's being killed or butchered, right? So the leaner that meat is, the larger chance that there's not going to be a lot of bad bacteria and things that are going to be causing inflammation. So I say if it's 85 or lower for percent of fat, you want to go more grass fed. So the more sure you definitely got to get grass fed.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, man. How would you suggest guys kind of know what's going on with this, right? Like, I mean, just me for personal experience. I go get just kind of like my labs done, every so often, right? And kind of see what are the
Yeah.
markers and things like that. But like from an insulin perspective, what are some recommendations to see, hey, like how does the food that I'm eating actually impact my body and its function?
Yeah, another great question, man, because you guys got to learn how to do this. And that's, why, first of all, if you're unsure, it's always good to hire a coach. It really is. I mean, that's how I got knowledgeable in it. But I would say the best way, if you're getting in, and if you're not getting labs annually as a guy, that's your first step. You got to at least get your labs annually done. But then after that, I would say most of the time, an easy prick of the finger, you can get a kit on Amazon for $22, and they do that. I do it fasted right after they eat, 2 hours after they eat, and then get those 3 readings and do that just to keep accuracy and consistency. I do it like 3 times a week and see how that trend is because the trend's everything, right? And that's what you want to look for as far as how is my body handling food? When does it seem to be spiking? And then you might find some crazy things. Like for me, I found that I'm more higher stress at night. And it was because I kind of would get wired with what I am thinking about for the next day. and I would then start doing and I'd have massively, and that's why then I used to wake up in sweats. I used to wake up like at least every 2 hours in the middle of the night. And I used to be, because I used to actually do a lot of work with people in China trying to get gym equipment. That's how I saved a lot of money. So I'd be doing it in the middle of the night, and I would always then not sleep very well. And it just had my cortisol completely out of whack. And so if you notice that you get these up and down swings of energy, there's a large part that you got some blood sugar dysregulation and or cortisol problems. And those are two things that, I mean, we know that cortisol mobilizes stored energy. So if you've got no energy and you're trying to mobilize it, your cortisol is just going to go up and up and up and up until your body just says, and it crashes. What happens then? Your adrenals get shot. And then what do you need? More caffeine, more caffeine, more caffeine. What's that do? More stress, more stress, more stress, to a point where your body just collapses on itself and you're just running on pure caffeine, and you can't function because your sugars are so high chronically that it doesn't matter how little you eat, the scale's not going to budge, or how hard you work out, your body's not going to change. And that's what I saw even personally, because I was doing so much caffeine and I was working out hard, and I'm like, man, I can't put on muscle. I can't do nothing. I can't get leaner. Nothing's working. And here to find, I was just rocking cortisol, and I was just high on blood sugars 24/7. And until I literally fed myself, calmed down, it's hard with kids under 5. And I kind of then started seeing better results.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be perfectly like honest on, on the show, and folks that know me know this is like, I pretty much run full steam all the time, dude, just because I'm, in grind mode right now. And I am an essential dad, right? I spend time with my kids and all that stuff. I mean, it's the Epic Dad Legacy podcast, right? So,
Mhm.
but there's a flip side of that too, of like, hey, I'm trying to grow a business, I'm trying to do all this stuff, and so for me, yeah, dude, I run off caffeine, man, I do. I don't get enough sleep, 100%. I don't get enough sleep. I know that. And I have too much caffeine, so
Hey, I mean, caffeine's not a bad thing, man. It's a great stimulant, but it's just what I always tell guys is you got to take it in doses. And if you've not done, and I always tell guys, if you have not done a deload at least once a year, do it, because it'll save your adrenals. It'll save a lot of stress on your body, because what it eventually does is it blocks what's called adenosine. And adenosine is your natural circadian rhythm to say, hey, I'm getting a little tired. We should probably start slowing down. And the more it blunts this, the more it's going to then affect your adrenal health. And that then becomes a problem. Now, guys can get away with a lot easier. And I will say that just because I've worked with them for 13 years, that, you could throw a guy in a desert and not feed him, and he's going to come out and be fine after a couple of weeks of feeding him back up and doing what he needs to do. But you do the same thing for a female, and you're wrecking their entire insides for probably 2 years.
mm,
So females are different, but the average guy, yeah, I mean, you can live off things for a short term, but high functioning, like you and I mean, I'm the same way, man. I'm up at 4:30 every morning. I've got 2 kids. I got to get them up, fed, into school, and drive them an hour to get there and back. It's nuts. And I understand that stress and where you got to go, go, go. But what I've really learned in the last kind of 2 years of my trial storms and coming closer to God is I make sure at least once or twice a week that I take a good, I want to say, few hours on one day, and I just literally put my phone down. I try to make sure that my kids are not even around. I just take that time to either just chill, sit, stop, because like they say, the more high functioning a man is, that more recovery he needs. And that's
mm,
the thing that I used to think, I got this. I don't need sleep. I can keep going, until it literally broke me.
yeah,
And I realized that, it's that force, it's that hard thing. It's honestly, it, the thing that we see is, right, the guys that are lazy, the guys that don't do things, right? Those are the ones that we kind of envy, because we do so much that we have to force ourselves to stop and slow down. And that's the reality. Like, even sometimes my kids like, Daddy, stop. Like, okay, like sometimes it is hard, but it's one of those things too, where there's good and bad on both sides. Like, you can't put all your coins in that sympathetic stress state
mm,
and then have zero coins in the parasympathetic state where your body needs that rest, relax, and digest.
yeah,
And as hard as that is for me to realize, I had to force myself there. And it's still hard to this day. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's hard for me to tell me just to go sit in a corner and read, dude. I mean, I'm not that type of guy, like I got to go. But
yeah.
I've found my ways to do it, and sometimes even walking in nature is great. So I include that in my program for guys. So like I try to do Sunday walks in nature can be great for de-stressing. It's actually been proven in research too that there's something about nature because a lot of times I'm walking on the treadmill today. Well, get outside, man, because number one, you're going to stimulate dopamine and you're going to have higher serotonin levels. But number two, you're naturally going to be chasing a goal when you're walking outside. Like you're
Mhm.
going towards something, right? When you're on a treadmill, you're watching HGTV or your favorite sports game. It's not stimulating for growth. And that's why when I tell guys nature, it's night and day different. And
Yeah.
until you do it, you don't realize it.
Yeah, what I've tried to incorporate, man, I mean, it works for me. Everybody's different, right? But this is just kind of what works for me. Is I kind of take mini breaks throughout the day, right? And so,
Mhm.
um, and schedule those in, and I found that to be effective for me. So, like in the morning, it's usually post a workout or post training. I'll spend a little bit of time, and it's not much. It's 10, 15 minutes, to kind of do that deregulation, right? That like kind of downgrading, because I'm in a kind of a heightened mental state just after training. And so I'll take that
Mhm.
time to say, okay, hey, let me kind of then pause and I'll do a breathing exercise, right? Kind of meditation, visualization, that allows me to kind of down regulate. And I found the mornings that I don't do that, I see a drastic impact in like the way that I
Yeah.
feel, the way that I show up, energy levels, things like that.
Yep.
And then throughout the day too, it's just taking breaks outside, right? And
Yep.
so it'd be like, hey, cool, I'm gonna take 15 minutes. I'm gonna go for a walk outside, get some
Yep.
sunlight, right? Releases dopamine.
Mhm.
And it's honestly just, for guys that are working all the time, right? Like to your point, yeah, you'd be walking on a treadmill, feel like you're getting your steps in or whatever, but like you're not disengaging from what you're doing. And so like having that
Yeah.
intentional time to disengage has been huge for me. And I may not have like a 6 to 8 hour block of time throughout the week where I just like totally down regulate, but it's like those kind of mini breaks for me
Mhm.
to kind of refocus have been good.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I can tell even with your energy levels, just even talking to you, that you have that aura about yourself, and that's what usually a lot of guys see success with is those micro breaks. Like even, like I call them just mini walks. Like I say, hey guys, every 2 to 3 hours, take a mini walk break, and there's just 10 to 15 minute walks can just literally do night and day. And even after like you get a stressful situation, just I used to be the type that would just quickly respond, quickly go back right at it, but now I pause. Sometimes I'll even just not answer and just take some time to think, process, and then come back later. And it seems to really help a lot of people, even I coach.
Yeah. Well, Mike, man, where can folks go to find out more about you, kind of what you have going on?
Yeah, I have a brand new page on Instagram. So if you go there, I'm not just some newbie spammer on Instagram, I promise. But it's Coach Mike Over is my name, and I'm also on Facebook. More of my following is on Facebook. I have a more of a larger following plus local for my gym, so I'm there. But obviously, like I told you earlier, I do a lot of publications for some magazines. Like I've been in Men's Health, I've been with Dr. John Rushton, I've been in T Nation, Elite Fitness. So you can find my articles just online by searching my name, and anywhere else is just you can find me with my kids.
Yeah. Well, dude, man, I appreciate you coming on, man, and getting into kind of some technical stuff here. Which honestly a lot's just for my interest, but hopefully guys listening will have an interest in it too.
Yeah,
And so I think it's huge, man, when we think about being in shape. One, it's important. It's just going to help us show up better, right?
mhm,
And two things on it is like it can be as complicated as you want it, right? Like we went down a couple rabbit holes, and it's like it can be very. You can get into the weeds, right? You can
yeah,
absolutely. But for most dads, it's like, hey, let's keep things simple. And things they can implement right away, which you do as well, right? And just thinking about what are
yeah,
those potential daily habits, right? And not that you need to go freaking to the gym 2 hours a day and train and do all this
yeah.
crazy shit. It's like, no, man, let's simplify it, right? So I love that, man. So I appreciate you
One
coming
thing
on,
I
dude.
want to say, the biggest thing too is I tell a lot of guys like, look, if that stresses you out and you're wondering, because I get so, I mean, you probably do too. Drew, what supplement should I take for this, or what? I always say this. This is my favorite six. I love saying with a smile on my face. Until you do the
Yep.
basics for a year, Not just a month, not just 6, a year. Then maybe you can start thinking about, this could maybe help my gut, or this could maybe help with building
Yeah.
muscle. Maybe this performance enhancer could maybe do some work, or I'd try this supplement. Until you do something for a year, don't ask me about supplements.
Yeah.
Your first order of business is to show up and be consistent
Yep.
and just move your body and eat well, because like I have a client that literally lost everything in the hurricane, but he's living out of an RV with 3 families and still getting his workouts in. So I told, what's your excuse again?
Yeah.
Like it's sometimes it's just don't ask the silly questions, just show up for a good year and watch what that does for your life. And then you can start worrying about the
Yeah,
extras,
we always want to optimize, right? Let's optimize. Let's optimize. It's like, no, man, you don't need to worry about optimizing right now, dude. Like
Yeah.
let's worry about the basics, right? Like for us, it's hey, man, let's move your body, right? Let's
Mhm.
train a little bit.
Yeah.
To add some strength. Let's sleep,
And
and
sleep.
then
Yep.
let's eat real foods. That's simple.
Yep.
Let's do that consistently for a while, and then we'll go from there. So,
Exactly.
but well, Mike, man, I appreciate you coming on, dude. And hey, for guys listening, if you got any value from this conversation, I want you to do 2 things. Is one is drop down into the description here, leave us a review, leave us a comment, leave us a review, let us know you liked it. That's going to help us reach a broader audience, with our message. And then 2, the other thing I say is if you got value from this, is share the episode, right? Like we go
Absolutely.
through a lot as dads, and we go through a lot alone, and we don't like to talk about a lot. So like you never know what challenge, what struggles another dad's going through. And just the simple act of you saying, hey man, I heard this episode, thought you could get some value from it, right? And share it. That might be what they need to take the first action, right? To start prioritizing themselves, to start prioritizing help and their family. And so those 2 things, guys, leave us a comment, review, and share this episode. And Mike, I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Hey, no, appreciate you, Drew. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, guys. Well, hey, that's it for us, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the show and supporting my mission to change the culture by creating more epic dads. If this message resonates with you and you're ready to become the husband, father, and man you're called to be, here's 2 quick things you can do to get started. Number 1 is to join the Epic Dad training app. Inside the Epic Dad app, you'll find workout programs, community, habits, accountability, courses, resources, and exclusive discounts on all Epic Dad supplements and gear. It has everything you need to start leveling up as a dad. Just hit the link in the show description and get your first 7 days free. And if you're ready to turbocharge your results and create massive change in your life, hit the link in the show description and apply to the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the Fit program is to radically change your life in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. Thanks for listening. Now go be epic.